She was a fierce leopard. A deadly predator. But one day, she stumbled upon a helpless bobcat kitten, alone, starving, abandoned. What she did next defied every rule of nature, and changed both their lives forever. But when danger came years later, the bobcat had to become the protector. This is the untold story of love, sacrifice, and legacy, in the wild. The wind blew warm across the tall grass of the savanna, rustling golden blades like whispers from a distant memory. Birds circled high overhead, calling out to the morning sun. Beneath them, a leopard moved like liquid shadow, Zara, queen of her territory, a silent, graceful hunter feared by all who roamed the wild. But that morning was different. She wasn't hunting. Not yet. Her paws patted gently across the earth, ears twitching to every sound, eyes sharp as glass. A scent had caught her attention, something faint, something new. It didn't smell like prey. It didn't smell like danger either. It smelled helpless. Zara moved cautiously through the brush, her powerful body weaving between trees and rocks until she reached a small open patch beneath an old acacia tree. That's when she saw it. Curled in a hollow of dust and dry leaves was a tiny creature, barely moving, trembling. A bobcat kitten, no older than a few weeks. Its fur was dirty, patchy, and thin. Its eyes were open wide, glistening with fear and hunger. It looked up at Zara, but didn't run. Zara froze. Her mind screamed instinct, "This is not yours." She was a leopard, strong, solitary, deadly. She didn't raise young that weren't her own. She didn't rescue creatures from the edge of death. But there was something in that kitten's eyes. Something she couldn't look away from. A flicker of fight. A whisper of life. And in that moment, Zara made a decision that would change everything. With gentle movements rare in a predator, she lowered her head. The kitten didn't hiss. Didn't cry. It only blinked slowly, as if too tired to fear. Zara opened her jaws and softly, carefully, picked the kitten up by the scruff of its neck. She carried it through the grass, back to her resting spot, a shaded patch near a small stream where she often slept. There, she set the kitten down and lay beside it, her large body curled protectively around the tiny bobcat. The kitten pressed its face against her belly, searching for warmth. Zara licked its ears with slow, deliberate care. From that day forward, Zara became more than a leopard. She became a mother. She named the kitten Tolly, a sound she made deep in her throat when calling softly. The name meant nothing to the world, but everything to Zara. At first, caring for Tolly was difficult. The bobcat was small, weak, and hungry. Zara had to catch smaller prey to feed her, rabbits, birds, lizards. She would leave Tolly hidden under brush, then race across the plains to hunt. Each time she returned, she feared she might find the kitten gone, taken by eagles, snakes, or worse. But Tolly survived. And not just survived, thrived. She began to grow stronger, her eyes brighter, her meows louder. She followed Zara's every step, stumbling at first, then learning to crouch, to hide, to pounce. Though her landings were clumsy, her heart was eager. She was learning from the best. At night, the two would curl together, Zara's thick tail wrapped around Tolly's small body like a shield. When lightning danced in the sky or hyenas howled in the distance, Tolly would shiver. But Zara never moved. She kept her eyes on the dark, ears alert, muscles ready. She would die to protect the little one she had found. But not everyone accepted their bond. One evening, as the sun dipped below the trees, casting long shadows across the rocks, Zara and Tolly came face to face with a male leopard, bigger than Zara, scarred from old fights. He growled low in his throat and stepped forward, baring teeth. The sight of Tolly made him pause. He circled them slowly, eyes narrowed. A leopard raising a bobcat? It was unnatural. Dangerous. A threat to order. Zara stood tall, placing herself between the stranger and Tolly. Her tail flicked. Her body lowered into a crouch. A growl rumbled from her chest, low, steady, final. The male turned and left. Tolly didn't understand what had just happened. But she saw something she would never forget, the way Zara stood, unshaken, unafraid. For her. Weeks passed. Tolly grew more confident. One morning, she followed Zara to a quiet clearing. There, Zara crouched low, her eyes locked on a hare nibbling at the edge of the grass. She looked back at Tolly. A silent command, "Your turn." Tolly hesitated. Her paws trembled. But she moved. One slow step. Then another. Her heart beat loud in her ears. The hare twitched. Tolly pounced. She missed. The hare bolted. Tolly tumbled into the dirt, landing awkwardly on her side. She growled in frustration. But when she looked up, Zara was watching, not with anger, but with quiet approval. Zara patted over and licked her gently. Then, without a word, turned and disappeared into the grass. Tolly followed, tail lifted, a little more proudly than before. That night, Tolly caught her first mouse. It wasn't much, but it was hers. The seasons changed. The savanna turned from green to gold, then faded to dust. Water became harder to find. Prey scattered. Predators grew desperate. One dry afternoon, a pack of hyenas tracked them. Zara scented them first, sharp, cruel, always laughing. She told Tolly to stay hidden under the roots of a fallen tree. Then she stood alone in the open. 3 hyenas crept closer, their eyes gleaming. They didn't want a fight. They wanted the small one. An easy meal. Tolly's scent was fresh. They knew she was near. But Zara snarled, a sound that cut through the heat like thunder. She stood tall, fur bristling, eyes glowing. Her claws scraped the ground. The hyenas paused. They knew that look. Zara didn't back down. She didn't run. She was ready to fight for her cub. And the hyenas turned away. Zara waited until they disappeared into the tall grass before returning to the tree. Tolly jumped into her legs, burying her face into Zara's fur. That night, the stars shone brighter. And Tolly dreamed not of bobcats, but of leopards. Tolly's legs were longer now. Her fur had thickened, her tail fuller, and her small paws now held claws sharp enough to tear bark. She still had that bobcat wildness in her, short tail flicking, ears twitching at every sound, but her spirit had been shaped by a leopard. By Zara. They moved together now, not as mother and baby, but as teacher and student. Side by side, their shadows stretched across riverbeds and cliffs. Tolly learned to follow without sound. To read wind. To wait, not with fear, but with patience. But she also learned something even greater, that courage isn't only about fangs and claws. Sometimes, it's about standing beside someone, even when you don't have to. One morning, the sky turned pale before dawn. Mist hung low, brushing their bellies as they crept through the valley. A herd of impala grazed at the edge of the woodland, unaware of the silent death moving through the shadows. Zara moved first, her body low, movements fluid. Then she stopped. Looked back. Her golden eyes locked with Tali's. "Your turn." Tali froze. Her breath caught in her throat. She had caught mice, birds, even a baby rabbit, but never this. Never something so large, so aware. She stepped forward, muscles tight with focus. Step by step. The impala lifted its head. Tali crouched lower. Then, she launched. The grass exploded beneath her. The impala bolted. But this time, so did Zara. Together, they chased, zigzagging through thorn bushes and broken logs. Tali was fast, but Zara was faster. She leapt. In mid-air, her body twisted, claws flashing. The impala went down hard, legs buckling under her weight. Dust rose. Silence fell. Tali approached slowly, wide-eyed. Zara stood over the kill, breathing hard, her chest rising and falling like drums. Then she stepped aside. Let Tali take the first bite. It was more than a meal. It was a passing of power. A quiet rite of belonging. But the wild was not just prey and practice. It held danger in the silence. And it came one dusky afternoon. They had just finished drinking at a muddy watering hole when a rustle caught Zara's ear. She turned, instantly alert. The smell hit her like fire, man. Zara growled low and shoved Tali behind a rock. She crouched, ready to flee, but it was too late. A long, coiled rope flew through the air, a snare. It wrapped tight around her leg, biting into flesh. She roared in pain as it yanked her backward toward a hidden trap in the trees. Tali screamed, a sound not quite a meow, not quite a roar, but something wild and broken. Zara thrashed, but the rope held firm. She clawed at the dirt, blood smearing the ground. Tali didn't run. Instead, she did what Zara had taught her. She used the shadows. She circled around the trees, found a wooden stake anchoring the snare. The rope was thick, twisted. But Tali didn't stop. She bit it. Pulled. Clawed. Minutes felt like hours. Zara's roars grew weaker. Her body slumped. Then, snap. The rope frayed. Zara fell to the ground, free but bleeding. Tali raced to her side and nudged her with her nose. Zara groaned, but her eyes opened. She licked Tali's face once, weak, but full of pride. Tali helped her stand. Slowly, limping heavily, Zara leaned against her. Together, they walked into the tall grass and disappeared from the trap. That night, beneath a thick blanket of stars, Tali stood guard. Her eyes never closed. Her ears never rested. She watched every sound, every breeze. Because love had made her brave. Days passed. Zara's leg healed, though her limp remained. She moved slower now. Slept longer. Her hunting was clumsier, and the wounds sapped her strength. But she never showed fear. Never whimpered. Tali watched and understood. Her time was coming. One early morning, they reached a ridge that overlooked the whole valley, their home, their story, written in tracks and memories across the grasslands. Zara lay down with a heavy sigh, staring at the sky. Tali sat beside her. "Why did you save me?" she seemed to ask with her gaze. Zara didn't speak, but her head pressed gently into Tali's shoulder. "Because sometimes, you don't need a reason. You just need a heartbeat. They stayed there all day. Watching the eagles glide. Listening to the winds whisper between the trees. Tolly closed her eyes and remembered the first time she had seen this world, small, broken, left alone under a tree. Now, she was stronger than ever, scarred by survival, shaped by love. But just as she opened her eyes again, she felt it. Zara was breathing slower. Quieter. Tolly nuzzled her. Zara opened her eyes one last time, and they glowed with the same fire she'd always had. Then, they closed. Peacefully. Tolly lay down beside her. Not in panic. Not in despair. But in gratitude. She had been given a mother. A protector. A gift. And now it was her turn to carry the story forward. As the sun rose the next day, a lone bobcat stood tall on the ridge. She looked out at the valley, not with fear, but with purpose. Behind her, the wind stirred the grass. Beside her, the memory of a leopard walked on. Time did not pause for grief. When the sun rose the morning after Zara's last breath, the wind carried no morning song. The savanna stretched the same, wide, golden, full of life and death, just as it had always been. But something had changed. A leopard's footprints ended. A bobcat's story had just begun. Tolly stayed at the ridge for 2 days, curled beside Zara's resting place beneath a bed of leaves and wildflowers she had gathered with trembling paws. No creatures came near. The hyenas stayed away. Even the vultures circled but never landed. As if the wild itself knew, something sacred had happened here. On the third morning, Tolly stood up. Not because she was ready. But because she knew what Zara would want. So, she walked, alone now. No shadow to follow. No warmth to lean on. Just memory. But that memory burned bright. The world beyond their valley was unfamiliar. Tolly had never gone far from Zara's territory. But something called her, some instinct deeper than fear. She crossed wide plains, climbed jagged rocks, and drank from streams under starlight. She slept in hollow logs, under trees, or not at all. Her journey had no map. Only purpose. She was searching. For what, she didn't yet know. Until one evening, she found it. The sun was setting when she came upon a small clearing deep within the forest. The scent stopped her mid-step, bobcats. Tolly crept forward and spotted them, 2 adult bobcats and 3 tiny cubs wrestling in the grass. They looked like her. Sounded like her. Moved like her. But she didn't feel like them. She didn't walk like they did. She moved like a leopard, smooth, silent, deliberate. Her crouch was lower. Her stare was deeper. Her soul had been carved by a different teacher. The adult bobcats noticed her. One growled. The other stood between her and the cubs. Tolly didn't attack. She lowered her head. Took a step back. Then, she turned and left, not with shame, but understanding. She wasn't just a bobcat anymore. She was something else. Something in between. Weeks passed. Tolly made her own territory, small, tucked between cliffs and streams, full of hidden trails and secret hunting spots. She didn't mark it with scent or fight others for it. She simply existed there. Moved through it like wind. Quiet, unnoticed. But not for long. One stormy evening, Tolly heard something in the rain. A sound she couldn't ignore. A kitten's cry. She followed the whimper through brambles and thorn vines, her coat soaked and her body tense. Finally, she found it, a tiny bobcat kitten wedged between rocks, shivering, too weak to escape. Tolly froze. The scene was painfully familiar. For a moment, she saw herself again, beneath the acacia tree, helpless, waiting for a miracle. This time, she was the miracle. Without hesitation, she slipped into the rocks, nudged the kitten loose, and gently lifted it in her jaws. Back in her den, she dried it with slow licks, curled her body around its trembling frame, and let the kitten's heartbeat settle next to hers. She named her Nia, meaning purpose. Raising Nia was different. Tolly wasn't like other bobcats, and she didn't raise Nia like one. She taught her to hunt by shadows, to climb high into the trees like leopards do. She showed her how to feel the wind before it changed, how to spot danger before it arrived. Nia grew fast, curious and clever. She asked questions with her eyes. Why do you watch the stars before sleeping? Why do you move so quietly, even when no one's watching? Tolly never answered aloud. She only pressed her nose to Nia's cheek and held her close. One day, she would tell her. One day, she would share the story of the leopard who loved a bobcat. Years passed. Nia grew bold. Brave. She wandered far from the den, but always returned. And then came the day that changed everything, again. Tolly was hunting along a dry creek bed when she heard snarls. Sharp. Aggressive. She sprinted toward the sound and found Nia surrounded, 3 wild dogs closing in, teeth bared. Tolly didn't hesitate. She burst into the scene with a roar, louder, deeper than any bobcat should have been able to make. She didn't attack wildly. She fought like Zara. Precise. Fearless. Furious. She lunged at the nearest dog, slashing its flank. The others turned in surprise. Tolly stood between Nia and danger, growling so deep it shook the ground. The dogs backed off. They had expected prey, not a storm in the shape of a bobcat. When they were gone, Tolly turned to Nia. The young one trembled. I was scared, her eyes said. I was there, Tolly's eyes replied. Just like Zara had once been there for her. That night, Nia curled against her mother's side, small again. And Tolly looked up at the stars. I did it, she thought. I kept the story alive. As seasons passed, more cubs came. Nia had her own litter, 3 wide-eyed kittens with fast paws and big hearts. They listened to every word Tolly told them. They asked, why do we walk so quietly? Tolly would smile and whisper, because your grandmother was the silence. They asked, why do we fight so fiercely? Because she fought for me before I even knew what fighting meant. They asked, why do we stare at the stars? And Tolly finally said aloud, because she's up there now. Watching. Just like I watch you. In a forest not too far from where it all began, there now roamed a new kind of wild cat. Not leopard. Not bobcat. A legacy. Born from survival. Forged in love. Shaped by 2 souls who were never supposed to meet, but did. Zara had once raised a tiny creature, not of her blood, but of her heart. And now, through Nia and the generations that would follow, her story would never die.